What's happening? We're going over this answer session. Hope you're having the best day ever. What up? What up?
Leadership part, et cetera, seems to me to be very basic, a problem in our society, maybe a worldwide problem, but clearly a problem in our society. So I'll give a little thought to the answer to that question. One of the things is that the source of the authority, when it lies outside of those with whom the authority is exercised, you've got the beginnings of a possible problem. Not necessarily that's going to definitely, you see that, you're definitely going to wind up with a problem. I just say, you see that, and you damn well better be careful. See, if Dick's the leader of the group, and Dick is the leader of the group because God has given Dick a mission, and God is not directly available to the rest of us to discuss Dick's designation, that for me is a harbinger of a problem. If Dick's authority is based on his God-given talents, that's still a problem for me. If Dick's authority is based on a superior intelligence, if Dick's authority is based on anything which is inaccessible to the rest of the people in the group, then I am concerned. The times when I'm least concerned is when Dick's authority, and then I would not call it authority, is in the hands of the people with whom the authority or power is being exercised. And that's clear to everybody. See, I think you can con people into agreeing with your position of authority, but you can only con them if they don't know that they're the source of your authority. So that's one of the things which I think concerns me when I see that. I think that if you're attempting to avoid the evils of authoritarianism, that one of the things that should happen in the group in which you're functioning is that the people in the group be very clear that there is no natural leader. There are people who have natural leadership qualities, but that doesn't make them the leader. There's no outside authority unavailable to the people in the group selecting the leader. The group is empowering the people who are being empowered. I mean, it's something coming from the people who are to. Okay. One of the other things is, and this one is a lot more subtle, and I think a lot more dangerous, and that is the level of the intercourse, the intellectual level, kind of the prevailing intellectual level. Let me say, I'm going to get in trouble, but I don't use the exact word here. The prevailing epistemological domain, the realm of knowing which prevails in the group. If the realm of knowing which prevails in the group is conceptual, ideas, beliefs, slogans, that for me is almost certainly going to wind up with a problem someplace. And if it doesn't, somebody's going to have to really make sure it doesn't become a problem. Somebody's going to have to be working real hard to make sure that doesn't become a problem. That's almost a natural disaster. When I see that the epistemological domain, which I call experience, is also prevalent along with conceptualization, I'm then a lot more relaxed. Because if somebody tries to say that Jews are bad, and in the group it's kind of agreed on, or it's the style, or it's the way we function, that we verify things in our experience, I'm not so concerned that whoever's trying to get that one across is going to prevail with it. Because if experience is allowed, and if experience is fostered, and if the epistemological domain of experience is recognized and respected, then I have less concern. I begin to have almost no concern when, let's see, maybe I'll stay away from that one because it's a long talk. It's another realm in which I have even less concern. But when people, when there's another epistemological domain for me besides the domain of concept or explanation and experience or process, and the other domain is the domain of context or quote creation, so that it's a realm in which people are looking not at what they think only, but at the realm in which their thinking takes place. They're not so much, I become very little concerned when this realm in which attitude is certainly there and allowed and appreciated, and where a change in attitude, the process of attitudes, is respected, but when the epistemological domain of the context of attitudes is dealt in, then I become even less concerned. I think this is a good time to take a break and start again later. Thanks.
Yeah, we're taking a break.
Maybe we can start these. I've been using this thing and really good contact with a little bit. And I'm actually going to connect with it actually. And what you said about self is taken interesting to me because I haven't been doing research on self in anthropology, and find a lot of what you said just with some of the things I'm thinking about. So I have really two questions for you. One is, how did you talk a little bit about how you arrived at these ideas, or do I have? And secondly, I have no idea what the training process is, and could you say something about how what you're talking about relates to this part of the process of training? I haven't always had them. I arrived at the ideas as a way of expressing a phenomena which didn't happen in words, when I needed to express that phenomena because I could see, or I thought I could see, or I felt that I was talking with other people who'd experienced the phenomena and were struggling to express it in words. I felt that the words were valuable because they empowered the people with whom I was talking kind of get their hands on the steering wheel of the phenomena instead of merely to be kind of like praying for it.
Would it be fair to say that finding the right words is important because that lets you know that they know, and vice versa? I mean, otherwise, how would you know?
Yeah, initially, yes. No, that's very good. Initially, yes. In other words, the words somehow ring with the experience. So they say, yeah, that's what I've been trying to talk to you about. That's what I think happened to me. And that sounds like it's right. But if that's all it was, that would be trivial for me. What is more important for me is that literally the use of language, and language, I know we all know, is not merely words and syntax and so forth. The way I came to that expression was by struggling to come up with an expression which empowered people to own that phenomena which they had, I don't want to say experience, which had occurred. Yeah, which had occurred. So that's how I came to talk about it that way. I didn't come to talk about it that way because I thought people would understand it talking about it that way. As a matter of fact, they don't oftentimes. I don't talk about it that way because I think it helps people to explain it. Because oftentimes it doesn't help them to explain it. But I do notice that in talking about it that way, people are empowered with respect to the phenomena. That is to say, they are able to create it. They are able to see themselves as the author of it. It's accessible to them. So that's how I came to say that. What was it? Oh, the training.
Well, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Could you say something now about what the training process is and what it's supposed to do and how it does it?
The training is 4 days long, about 15-hour days. Some brilliant person figured out that why the days were 15 hours was because the training wouldn't work unless people were fatigued. And clearly, the training's done in 15-hour sessions because that's what you need in order to fatigue people and all those other things. I know you all know better than I do. The people that we've done the training with in the 60 hours over 2 weeks, they got fooled. They didn't know about that or whatever it was. And the people we've done the training with over 3 weekends, like we always do the training in prisons over 3 weekends, they didn't know that they needed to be fatigued for the training to work for them either. That's again one of those charges, which I really always love to hear. It illustrates the validity of the work we're doing. So at any rate, sorry to be off on my own tangent there. So the training's 60 hours long, and it's got parts to it because we're trying to understand it. We're trying to explain it to ourselves, so we divide it up into parts. Now, you should know that the trainers are virtually all people with professional backgrounds. They're either people with long experience as managers or executives, people who are fine artists, people who are psychologists. There are psychiatrists in the trainer body. There are physicians, MDs in the trainer body. There's, like that, lawyers. So the people who are already highly trained in the sense in which society considers people highly trained. It then takes us, on an average, 2.5 years to 3 years of not ordinary days to train them to be trainers, in addition to their professional background. Probably in ordinary, these are really trainer candidates worth all the time. They're trainer candidates all the time. It's a program of immersion. So it's like a 5-year program, maybe longer. But anyway, so I'm going to give you an answer about what happens in the training in 2 minutes. That takes us that long to get people who've been through the training. So I'm going to break it up for you. So the first part of the training is designed to let people see that some of the things which they think are true, they only believe to be true. And that there's a distinction between what you believe and what's true. And they might even coincide, but they're still distinct. It's also the first half of the first day, it's designed to give people an opportunity to recognize that they've got lots of pretenses in their lives and that they really are pretending a lot. They're kind of pretending, for instance, that their marriage works, or they're pretending that they want to do the work they do, or they're pretending that their life works, to say it in general terms. And perhaps the truth is it doesn't. Let me say that kind of takes us through the first day. I'm trying to go quickly. There's 2 parts of the second day. The first part of the second day is that people learn that there's a distinction between concepts about living and the experience of living. And they discover that they have not been experiencing life, they've been conceptualizing life. They, for instance, begin to observe for themselves that the idea that I love my wife is different than the experience I love my wife. And for the most part, I live with the idea that I love my wife. And very frequently do I ever have the experience that I love my wife. And the experience I love my wife has a hell of a lot different outcomes than the idea.
Can you say something on those things so far? Excuse me, just say we don't have too much time. I don't want to take too much time just outlining the training, since many of us are familiar with it. We do want to link it somehow, this discussion, to the issues of authoritarianism and those problems. I just don't want to.
Let me say a little bit.
I don't see how we can go back to that, but training.
But maybe I can just kill 2 birds with 1 stone, Dick, by relating it to authoritarianism as well. One of the things I think very important for you to know that the training is done, the training is a mass-produced custom service. So we produce it massively, but the service is totally customized. So that if there are 250 people in the training, there are 250 different trainings. Very little of the training is done at you. And if it is, that part which might be done at you is clearly done at you, by example. In a moment, you might not remember that, but after you sit down, it's very clear to you that it was by example. And the truth of the matter is, it doesn't make any difference whether you stand up or I stand up in an interaction with the trainer. The example's made. The training is also done, people say very harshly, and in some cases very crudely, scatological language. People are called assholes, etc. So a lot of people, on hearing about what happens in the training, are offended by that, concerned by that. I know, because I'm the guy who trained the people who are leading the training, that the training is done with absolute compassion, and that the toughness and the harshness and even the scatological language, including calling people assholes, is done out of a deep sense of respect for them and out of an intention to get straight with them, with absolutely no intention to demean them. And as a matter of fact, in terms of results, they're not demeaned, they're enhanced. The training's done with what might be called ruthless compassion, but it's done with compassion. And it's done with a real sense of the dignity of human beings, not the ordinary social grease called respect for each other, but a really deep kind of respect. The kind of respect wherein you have the sense that you'd be willing to be in the trenches with the person alongside you. It is a really empowering thing to discover that you've been relating with the people you love out of the concept of love and denying yourself the experience of love. And sometimes you've got to be very intrusive with people to get that up on the map. But I tell you, it's coming out of a respect for them and a commitment to them. Okay, then the next thing that's done in the training is that the anatomy of an experience is kind of delineated. We do what we call a truth process, which gives people the opportunity to tell the truth about an experience they've had experientially rather than conceptually. And we take we ask them to select an experience which is unwanted and yet persists. And we then give them the opportunity to tell the truth about it experientially to themselves. Just tell the truth about it. Sorry, that implies to somebody. No, to themselves. So I should tell you that the word tell means a different thing to me. I meant to say by the word tell, move from unawareness to awareness. That's contrasted with move from unconscious to conscious. None of the material, very little material they're going to deal with, except in rare cases where they break through into what is ordinarily called the unconscious. But they bring the material from unaware to aware. Yeah. And by the way, a sufficient number of people have the experience which was persisting for them cease to persist to make the point that what is persisting and is unwanted is doing so by virtue of the fact that you aren't telling the truth about it. Nobody needs to tell you that, by the way, it's real clear. And that you need to know something about the truth in order to tell the truth about it. Just like you need to know something about reading in order to read. One does not sit down and read. One needs a bit of instruction with respect to reading. And somebody figured it out for themselves to start with, so we have to assume that it could be done. And maybe I'll just stop at the second day, you can fill in the last 2 days or do whatever the people want to do, but at least I'll stop this round by finishing. The last process is called the danger process. And remarkable things happen to people as a result of the danger process. And so I want you to know that truly remarkable things happen to people. Physical things, abilities which they did not have before this process, they suddenly wind up having. They run significantly faster when they go out to the track after this process. Not everybody, but enough of those things happen. So I'm just going to illustrate kind of results, and I'll give you a better indication of the general result. Here's what happens in the danger process. A group of 25, 50, I don't know, people stand up in the front of the room with the instruction to don't do anything, do nothing, just stand there. And then while they're standing there, of course, a whole raft of stuff's going on with them. They're doing anything but doing nothing, and they're doing everything but doing nothing. And what we ask them to notice is that everything which is going on, which they have perhaps identified as themselves, is really an automaticity, because the instruction to them and their agreement, their intention is to do nothing, just to stand there. So if there are thoughts going on, they can then begin to see that they are not thinking that. They're having that thought, truly, but they are not thinking that thought. So perhaps what they've called thinking isn't thinking, it's having thinking. Now, people go through a whole bunch of stuff and they sometimes cry, and some people are embarrassed. And literally, you stand there like this. This is the whole game. There's nothing more than that. You don't stand there doing anything or being anything. You stand there. And you watch everybody else do it. And you watch people go through and people stand up there and faint. Literally. You stand there. People who talk inside groups go up and faint. And that happens frequently. People go up and get physically ill. People who have no problem doing it. So I want you to understand, I'm talking about actors or actresses who go up there and get physically ill and vomit when asked to do nothing. So what becomes clear to people, and there's prompting, but what becomes clear to people is that something's, that they've got an act. They've got a mechanism. They've got a collection of behaviors and actions and feelings that may not be them, since clearly they aren't doing it. It's happening to them. And there's something underneath that driving it. Why won't it stop? What's driving it? Then after everybody has their turn up front, and everyone has 4 or 5 or 6 turns watching the people up front, then they go in, then they sit down and close their eyes. They sit down and close their eyes. And they're more able, and we've done some of this already, so they're more able to be in touch with their actual experiences. And they discover something that's very, 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 very funny. Not at first, it's really frightening. And people go through an enormous amount of fear because they realize that what's driving those behaviors is their fear of people. That what makes them, there'll be people stand up there, men who can't stand anyway but like this. They can't get their arms down. They can't get them down. They can only stand like this. And you can literally look at them and see the kind of macho in their face. And what they find out is that they're macho because they're afraid. And it's a discovery that they make for themselves. People who are stupid find out that they're stupid because they're afraid of other people. People who are intelligent find out that they're intelligent because they're afraid of other people. People who are sexy find out they're sexy because they're afraid of other people. And what it does is to get to be very generalized. You find out that you're the way you are because you're afraid. And it's really a very overwhelmingly powerful experience for many of the people. And lots of people just sit there, nothing much happens for them. But a lot's happening for the people around you, and it works for you just as well. It's making the first thing happens for you or not. That's one of the beauties of the training, is that the training truly is customized. It's tailor-made for each person. If you're the kind of person who can't handle that much emotion, you just don't have that much emotion. It's that simple. And yet it works for you. Now, at some point, there's a breakthrough, and you kind of get the joke. And the joke is that the reason other people look frightening to you is because they're frightened. The boss is the boss because he's afraid. Just like you are whatever the hell you are because you're afraid. Now, when I tell you that in a room, it's kind of like, so what? But in the context of the training, sorry, I don't want to use that word there. In the environment of the training, this becomes really a breakthrough experience for people. And it makes life profoundly different. So in the week between the 2 weekends of the training, people have really wonderful experiences. Experiences of enormous freedom. Just remarkable kinds of freedom. And like I said, literal inabilities go away. So we all know that you get to run faster by adding to your ability to run. See, everybody knows that. Except in the training, you discover that maybe you get to run faster by taking away the inability to run faster. Maybe you get to be a master by taking away the inability to be a master. Maybe it isn't something you achieve. Maybe it's something you disachieve. So not going on like do 60 hours. That's really easy.
Well, I guess it was, you feel like having enough of it now.
Let me say one other thing. I just want to say 50 hours. Let me say one thing which I think is kind of funny. I have a kind of metabolism where going to the bathroom is very important to me. Going to the bathroom is very important. Now, it's very important for some people. I guess it has to do with the nerve endings around your bladder. I don't know, but it's just not important to me. I don't know why it's not important to me. And I don't have to go to the bathroom. I go to the bathroom as often as anybody else does. Except if I'm doing something, I don't go to the bathroom. If I'm interested in what I'm doing, I just don't go. And so when I was the only person who did the training at the beginning, so the sessions would go on forever, but I never had to go to the bathroom. And that became kind of people were studying the training about how I was doing the training, so they figured that this not going to the bathroom was a very important part of the training. But it's just so stupid because it's literally that silly. The whole business about going to, and people have these great theories about deprivation and all that other bullshit. It's just I don't have to go to the bathroom. So when I was doing the training, then people after me, they thought, oh shit, that's the way to do the training. You don't go to the bathroom. You don't let these people go to the bathroom. Nobody bothered to say, hey, we're back going to the bathroom. I say, well, go to the bathroom. You gotta go to the bathroom. I don't know. I also don't need a lot of sleep, so the trains go long into the night. And the people in the train needed a lot of sleep. I didn't need a lot of sleep. So therefore, we trained a lot of people who were asleep in the train. The train was just as well. They were asleep or awake.
So you really don't think that those really don't, they're not an essential part of the
They're just horse shit. No kidding. It's just crap.
It looks the most authoritarian.
Exactly. It's just, let me tell you something. There's an automatic break every 4 hours now. And we keep doing 60 hours because we didn't any less time per day. It would take more than 4 days, which is already a problem for people. But let me tell you something. You go into a prison and be authoritative with inmates in San Quentin. I want to see you do it. I want to see you do it. I want to see one of you do it. Anyone. You go into San Quentin and not be a part of the system and get into a room with inmates where there are no guards, and I want to see you be authoritarian. Now, we've done the training in San Quentin prison with no guards in room with the prisoners and 250 of them and 5 of us. And the training works spectacularly. And it works just as well in Israel as it does in New York City. And it works just as well in Davenport, Iowa as it does in Los Angeles. And it works every bit as well with Harvard professors as it does with, I don't know what's the opposite of Harvard professor. Yale professor. As a matter of fact, the truth of the matter is that the more you bring to the training, see, it's kind of like this. There's a minimum amount you get. There's like a critical mass achieved for everybody. And what you get out of our programs beyond that depends on what you bring to them. You've got a greater degree of your intelligence available to you, you get more out of the program. You've got a greater amount of your experience available to you, you get more out of the program. You're able to deal with abstractions and not merely with concrete values, you get more out of the program. You have the power of insight more fully developed in yourself, you get more out of it. You've gone through lots of disciplines, you get more out of it.
Buffering. 1 second, hold please. Yeah, so I'm not sure who Dick is, but he seems to be like asking most of the questions. And yeah, this is recorded, right? Oh, thanks. Spectacular results for criminals. Does that make them better criminals?
Make better criminal. Yeah. Here's what seems to happen. What seems to happen is they become free. Now, you can say, and I would agree, but that makes them free to be better criminals. If you're more free, you're able to be a better criminal. If you're more free, you're able to be a better citizen. But you see, I think that there's something inherent in freedom, and that is, I think that I think that the experience of freedom is inherently positive. So that the more freedom you experience, or I could be saying power, the more power you experience, and that's as contrasted with authority or domination, the more likely you are to be contributing, to be useful, and to be valuable. And that holds up in my experience. And it holds up absolutely in my experience. I know that anecdotes don't approve me, but I do want to tell you one little story about a guy from San Quentin by the name of Froggy who took the training. He was in San Quentin for life without parole. Whenever he got sentenced, that was the way the law was. That you were bad enough, that happened to you. And Froggy was a son of a bitch. Because there wasn't much else for him to be. He was counterproductive. He was a problem. He was a troublemaker. Because what was the difference? There was no reward for him to be because he couldn't get paroled. The other guys with these trial looked good, but they could get paroled. Froggy didn't make any difference. After the training, and I don't say as a result of the training, I say after the training, Froggy suddenly began to be, he did not become a model prisoner. He began to make a contribution in the prison. In other words, he didn't become consistent with the authority in the prison, but he became a contributor in that prison to the people in the prison, and he became a contributor to the quality of life in the prison. As a result of that, sorry, I don't know as a result of that, he also then began to look to do the impossible, which was to get a pardon. And he went through those legal maneuvers and he studied law and all that silliness. Sorry, not silliness. All the stuff you need to do to be able to do that when you're stuck in the San Quentin. And he got a pardon. And finally was paroled in San Quentin. At the point he was snatched up by the federal authorities and put in the federal penitentiary. But there he went with a pardon. And there he became really, really useful. And we did an interview of some people who've been to the training. Froggy was one of the people we interviewed. And during the interview, he was talking about getting out, what he was going to do with his life. And during the interview, he got tears in his eyes. And you say, well, that's understandable. Guy who's been in prison most of his life suddenly it becomes a reality. He's going to get out of prison and he's talking to you about that reality. Sure, he'd be moving up to tears in his eyes. That isn't what Froggy was crying about. Because the next thing he said out of his mouth was, except if I find that I'm needed here, I'm going to have to stay. See, I don't think that Froggy could have made that statement out of anything other than a sense of absolute freedom. And I think that out of the sense of freedom comes a natural, unmotivated, self-expressive usefulness. Sorry for the preaching there. But he may be qualified to do so. I'm not.
Could you define unmotivated when you're just talking about not oriented towards the thing you go?
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, before I began to do what I'm doing now, I was an expert in motivation, and one measures their expertise in the realm from which I came by your income. And given my income before, as I was an expert in motivation, and it was my business. And I know a lot about motivation. I mean, a whole lot. At one time, I was fairly clear. I was one of the few people in the country who really knew what motivation was, and I knew it up on the line, wherein my income was dependent on being able to teach people it. Ultimately, motivation is counterproductive because it's inherent in it that you're not. And so it teaches you that you're not, and it reinforces that you're not. And even achieving that towards which you were motivated just seals the fate that you're not. So if you examine intelligent people, particularly people with their intelligence on their coat sleeve, and you get down underneath it, I have invariably found, and I've been down underneath a lot of them now, that they are intelligent to avoid being stupid.
One sec.
They're empowered to get rid of you. Should they perceive you with a,
No, they don't need to get rid of me.
But could they if they didn't need to get rid of you?
The answer is kind of clearly yes.
And how would they, how would they go about it? Are there procedures in place?
They don't need any procedures. They have no authority.
Do you think they have a frame of mind in which they can assess your actions, and should your actions be such that we're bad for the goals you're trying to promote, that they would get rid of you and carry on the work without you?
I don't wonder about it. I know that they would do that and could do that. And as a matter of fact, since Est's inception, they've always had the wherewithal to do it because I never held any position of authority. I had no ownership position. I had no authority position. My power in the organization was exactly equal to my ability to be useful to the people in the organization. Now, so that's kind of the legal fact about it. Now let's talk about the actual fact about it. The actual fact about it is that I do have a lot of authority, and I consider the authority to be counterproductive. I don't like authority, and I don't like it not because I got anything against authority, because I don't per se. It just doesn't work. That's why I got something against it. It's nowhere near potent enough for the kind of things I'm interested in achieving. So we've worked at the job of undermining my position of authority. I don't like the authority because it gets in the way of my power. When you have authority with people, they can't hear you. They can neither hear you to tell whether you're saying bullshit, nor can they hear you to see whether you're telling something useful. So that's a problem for us, like it is in any organization, and it's a problem that I think we've been very successful at dealing with. We have forums for people to express themselves. It's kind of like the first rule as a staff member is an agreement to open, honest, and complete communication. We have structures to support people where they don't feel powerful enough to make those communications. We have an ombudsman who's paid to keep it to him or herself, who's ever holding that position, whose job it is to make sure that the staff member is not damaged by the communication, even if they got to make it themselves and not identify the source because they don't think that they can cover the staff member or whatever. We put those things in there. I don't care why we put those things in there. So we don't think that any of those things are necessary because we don't think we operate that way. But we think that it's possible for a staff member, when they're looking for an excuse not to be responsible, to say to themselves, hey, I can't tell the truth here because I'll get in trouble. So we just destroyed the opportunity to use that as an excuse. And there's no way that you as a staff member cannot say exactly what's on your mind because there are so many systems to protect you that you can't possibly get damaged by saying what's on your mind. So, yeah, I think it's very, I don't think it's possible. It happens that I get called to task. I don't get called to task often because I happen to be able to operate with a lot of accuracy. Also have one other very endearing quality. That is when I make a mistake, I get off it real fast. Maybe it's not an endearing quality.
Questions around the issue of quasi-beliefs and allowance only to start one. I know a lot of people have done this, and I've been impressed with them.
We will continue. Hope you're having a great day. Peace, love. Everything's in the description. Bye-bye.